How you doing, Spence? Live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's amazing how you can be in several places at once. So yeah, Glastonbury. What was all that about? And it's hard to imagine that it's nearly a week ago that it all happened. Now, this time I wasn't there in person, but of course, like many millions of people, I was watching some of it online and then some of it live, some of it um, the highlights afterwards. And for me, of course, I'm always watching it with two different hats on. One as a musician and looking at who's on, who's new. Looking at the different kinds of listening to the different kinds of music. But the main hat I'm wearing is looking at people's live performance and how they do it, how they construct their live shows, how they engage a crowd. That's the thing that really interests me. And there was lots of great examples over the weekend, don't you think? Um, so, in no particular order, let's dive into it. I think the first thing I saw was Rick Astley performing, which was really interesting because he's played Glastonbury before, I think, as a guest with the Foo Fighters. I think it was Glastonbury, but he obviously was given the chance, and he was also played. He played his own set, which was his own songs, his big hit, one big hit, and then he did a few covers, which was really interesting because he was on I think he was on Friday at 1 o'clock, so he was given not the best slot, but because it was such a great day, it was beautiful weather, and because he's Rick Astley, his novelty act, people outside of the UK probably don't understand how big Rick Astley was back in the 80s. He was part of the Stock Aitken and Waterman hugely successful production team, which churned out hit after hit after hit. I think they dominated certainly the early to late 80s, just totally dominated the charts for that whole time with obviously with famous acts like Kylie Minogue, Jason Donovan, but also Rick Astley and many others, Sunita. All these acts were all Stock Aitken and Waterman. They wrote all the tunes, they produced the songs, they did the videos, and they promoted them, and they were just extremely popular. And of course, Rick Astley was one of them. So I very much grew up with him being very famous. And then, of course, when all that sort of fell away, he lost his relevance, and I guess he's been trying to get back ever since. And he's had a bit of a resurgence because those adults like my age now got families and stuff, and it's kind of like cheesy now. It's a bit ironic, that anything kind of goes now, and so he's like capitalizing on that he can just shake off his kind of pop star image, and of course the Rick rolling thing really helped him sort of have a second wind. So it was just really great to see him take his chance. Really, he didn't. He was totally prepared. He was just throwing everything at it. Did you see? He played the drums and sang AC/DC song, which is just as far as away as you can get from his pop star image. And he did an okay job, and the rest of his set was pretty good, pretty tight. What I really liked was at the end of his set. Obviously, he made a big point of playing his hit and stretched it out as long as he could, extended the intro. He put the chorus at the beginning, and he just did it a cappella and got the crowd singing along because everyone knew the words. And so even if you don't want to watch Rick Astley, just watch that bit when he does his song at the end, because that's a great way of repurposing, reproducing a song that he could have just blasted through in 3 minutes, but he stretched it out as long as he could. And at the very end, he did the bit where you introduce the band and everyone gets a little solo, and that's such a great thing to do with the band, because a lot of session players, they make they're brilliant musicians, but they don't get the props they deserve. So each one of those, full BBC coverage, getting their solo, that's great for them as well. That's something that they can sort of dine out on and use for their own careers. Really, they can use that showreel thing of I played the main stage with Newcastle, and he's the footer from the BBC. So that's and that's worth. Of course, people want to get paid, but that's worth a lot if you're a session player because you're only as good as your last job. And when the Ricastle band finishes, then those guys are going to be playing in other bands. So anyway, it was good that he gave everyone lots of props. And he just really was so humble, wasn't he? He was just so grateful to have that opportunity. He knew what it meant. He knew what it's like to be famous and then lose it and then get it back again. And so he was just literally throwing everything at it. And then the big surprise was then he played with Blossoms, which is like such a kind of a cool move, really, because Blossoms are such a cool band and just very unlikely combination. And especially when he started playing the Smiths songs, and they played them so well. The Blossoms were a great Smiths tribute act, and so I guess he was just trying all different angles, and you can't blame him for that. I think he did a great job being Rick Astley and trying to be relevant, which is what he's trying to do. But his big thing was live. He does things live, and he, like I say, his live show, particularly the last song, was a great example of how to do it live. You don't just play your song exactly as it sounds on the record. People don't really want that when they want you to sing it. They want you to sing the same melody and everything. They don't want you to change that. But what they want is something to breathe in it a bit, to sort of live it a bit, and to extend the intro, extend the choruses, have sing-along bits, get the audience involved, and that's what makes a great show. And they even got the security guards dancing as well, doing like this little kind of choreographed dance that the security guards were doing. So everyone was in on it, and there was a lot of love for Rick, which was great to see. And talking of a lot of love, I guess the big talking point was Lewis Capaldi, and for all intents and purposes, let's say it wasn't his best gig. I think he's on record as saying that it wasn't a great show for him. He's clearly got issues, and even though he'd taken a break beforehand to try and prepare, it still wasn't enough. So, God bless him, and I hope he comes back stronger and fitter and brighter, and I hope he continues because he's a great artist and he's a very natural, charismatic, disarmingly honest performer, and he's a great singer. But what was really interesting about that was his biggest song. He kind of faltered and he couldn't sing it. He choked, and the crowd just carried him, and that was beautiful. So it just goes to show that it doesn't have to be like such a polished performance to be memorable. In his case, it was the exact opposite. It was a kind of a weak vocal performance from him, and yet it gave the audience a chance to show their appreciation, their love, and of course, it's a great song as well, and it's perfect for people to sing back to. So, I'm sure in some ways it was a master stroke, because if he was considering taking a break from touring anyway, then what a way to go out with everyone singing your biggest hit back to you. You're kind of choking up on the stage, all this outpouring of love, and then you just say, "Oh, by the way, guys, I'm gonna take a break from touring," and that's kind of the perfect way to go. There was no slagging him off. There was no like trying to get through performance, pretending, like we'll come to that in a minute, like pretending to sort of be able to do it, but not really admitting that you can't do it. And so his honesty in the fact that you say, "Look, I can't do this," was what people wanted, and they rewarded him with a lot of love and support. So it just goes to show, it's how you play it. It's how it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're honest, and if your brand, which is his brand, is all about his disarming honesty, he's just honest all the time, isn't he? That's why he's so funny. That's why people love him. And he's not like the Justin Bieber kind of pretty boy, slick pop act. He's a very kind of normal looking guy from Scotland who just happens to have a great voice and has written an amazing song. And so he's totally authentic. And so he's kind of played a complete blinder there. Now, if you think of now, let's talk about Guns N' Roses, for example, an amazing band, and I still think Appetite for Destruction is probably one of the best debut albums ever. Um, Not so keen on the rest of their output, to be honest. Although uh, the acoustic album, I forgot what the album was called. Was it Patience Lies, Shocking Truth, or something? The one that had like acoustic tracks on it, that's quite nice as well. But I think really Appetite for Destruction was just phenomenal, phenomena sort of an album, and I think that's what a lot of people love them for. Um, Not so much the later work, and of course, great to see them all on stage again. But really, Axl Rose is about the vocals, isn't it? It's about hitting those high notes, and he just hasn't got it anymore for whatever reason. I mean, like, that style of singing is very hard on the vocals. It's not a natural style, and I think he's a baritone anyway. So singing in that high register is gonna really, unless you're doing that regularly, and you're in training, and you can keep up that kind of tone for years, which I don't think he has done that. He's dropped in and out, hasn't he? So at one point, yeah, great to see them all back together again. But really, did that need to happen? Did they need to have him singing the whole set? Um, I think for me, if it ruined it, it ruined the legacy really, because the vocals really let it down. Um, and he's still got the moves. I guess he's running around and hitting all the points, but it's kind of, it was just sad that he was struggling through the vocals so much, and like trying to pretend that it wasn't bad. And again, if he'd have done a Lewis Capaldi, gone, look, sorry guys, I just can't do it. Would they have got as much support? Probably not, because I guess they're American, coming over here, and maybe they wouldn't have got as much love as Lewis Capaldi, because I guess he's British and kind of one of us, if you like. It just get a bit like that, a bit territorial, doesn't it? Anyway, the point was they did it, and a divided opinion. I'm sure they got a good payday out of it and got some good experience of doing it. But yeah, was it really needed, necessary? I think what would have been a better move for them was to have done one or two things. They could have brought Axl Rose on as a guest vocalist on his own band, which would have been interesting. And had whoever was doing the vocals before, just have someone who can really cut it live, who can really belt it out. I think that would have been more interesting to fans, and kept the dream alive a bit more, rather than sort of drag it through the mud a bit with his vocals. So sorry about that. Yeah, just doesn't cut it for me. Arctic Monkeys, great act. I thought they did really well, and he had laryngitis as well. So again, vocal performances, it didn't seem to affect him so much. I didn't hear him struggle. And maybe the set that they chose was more easily singable for him. I don't know, but there was a lot of argument about people saying that it was boring and it wasn't so, But the Arctic Monkeys, they've evolved, and it's interesting to see, because they started out these plucky lads from Sheffield singing about, the kitchen sink, sort of northern, very ordinary sort of small town life, and singing with a Sheffield accent. And now they're kind of grown up, and they dress. They've got a very stylish kind of look about them. They kind of sing more kind of like a mid-Atlantic kind of American style, and they've got a bigger sound. It's more kind of sexy. It's more kind of classical, but still got a lot of energy. And I still think their rhythm section is amazing. It's the drummer and the bass there, really holding it all together. They're making them really interesting live, I think. But they did what they do, and they've evolved, which is interesting, because the Brits' response to that was like, oh, they're boring. They want to kind of keep them the same as these kind of little kids singing about, having a fag around the back of the shops, and, sort of drinking cider, and, getting off with a girl at a house party, all these kind of things that you do when you're a teenager. And obviously they're not teenagers anymore. They've grown up. So their music's grown up with it. But some people don't want that. They want to keep them the same. Which is interesting, because when bands evolve, let's take Kings of Leon, for example. If you hear their first album, Youth and Manhood. It's very like deep south, dirty rock, like pub rock almost, very raw, very little production on the album. Sounds very live. It's great, absolutely brilliant songs, real energy, but not really polished, very raw. And singing is very northern drawl. And then suddenly they become this big stadium act, and it's all kind of like sounding like U2, lots of effects on the guitar, different kind of neutral kind of accents, big sort of anthemic choruses, and everyone loves them. Whereas the Arctic Monkeys go that way, and then people start going, "Oh, you're selling out," and stuff. So it's very different, and I guess it's culturally very different. Also, Elton John, of course, vocals again. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter for him because it's all about what he did do was play the greatest hits, which is what everyone wanted, and it was his last show, so he went out with a bang, and he's a seasoned pro. He's got nothing to prove. He didn't have to do that, but he's gone out with a bang, played his last UK show on Glastonbury, which is perfect, and got probably one of the biggest crowds ever. And everyone was there to sing along with his songs, no matter whether he could still hit the notes or not. It didn't really matter. So I think when you're at that level and you've contributed that much to music, it doesn't really matter. You can do what you want. God bless him for doing that. So yeah, it's a really interesting mixed bag of live acts there. But I think while it's also sort of there's the Foo Fighters, and again, they're almost becoming, they're not quite that big legacy act yet, but they've got a lot of hits that people sing along to. And I think also Dave Grohl's vocals were a bit weak, especially on songs like Pretender. He couldn't hit that top note, which that chorus is pretty hard to sing live anyway. So he dropped it down a key, which again lost some of the impact. And he was kind of shouting and screaming through some of it. Which again, in some ways it doesn't matter because it's the Foo Fighters and it's live, and it's his intensity and energy kind of carries any kind of smooths over any vocal imperfections, let's say. But I think if you're a new band starting out, that stuff isn't going to cut it. You really need to be able to sing live. You need to be able to hit the notes and not sort of shout and scream instead. So I think that's a good note for if you are starting out. You've really got to be on your top form. I think it's when you're 20 years down the line, you've got a whole catalogue of hits that people sing back to you. Then you can be forgiven a little bit for not being totally on pitch. So yeah, great mix. So what was all that about? And the reason why I'm talking about this is if you want to level up your live performance, I want to hear from you. You can click the link in the bio, book a free 20-minute call. We can talk about how you can level up your live performance. Because as you can see from Glastonbury, if you've got a slot at Glastonbury and you're a new band, that's a big opportunity to win some new fans, to gain a lot of coverage. And if your live performance is wanting, or if you haven't really got a live performance, these opportunities will pass you by. And I know a lot of people just want to go, well, it's all about Spotify numbers. I just want to get, a million Spotify streams and, get my $4,000 and all that kind of stuff. And that's fine. I'm not saying that, doing a live show and doing Spotify mutually exclusive. I think they should go hand in hand. But for me personally, I think it starts with the live show. I'm old school like this. It starts with a great live show. And then when you can do a good live show again and again, that can also be a good way of promoting your Spotify stuff. So if you've got stuff online, people are much more likely to, you win fans at gigs because they listen to you because you're doing a good show. They're much more likely to go and check you out and buy and follow you on Spotify. And maybe the other way around, it's easier to, to sort of hide a bit, really, isn't it? To hide being a studio act and people just listening to your stuff. But when it comes to live, maybe you don't play live, or you haven't got a live act, or the live act isn't very polished. Then I think if people do see you live and you haven't got it, or you haven't got a good live act, then that doesn't really create longevity for me. And some people argue the point the other way. And I had that conversation this morning with a very sort of well-known guy in the music marketing space today doing a live, and I just jumped on there and heard I kind of just suggested about, he was talking about being real and authentic, and this is how people want to see you now. Like even not even in music, but in business, people have got to be online, doing lives, doing like showing themselves as they are, so they're real people. Because obviously AI and bots are so prevalent now that it's like, well, what's real? You know, who am I talking to? Who are these people? So I think as an artist, you need to be doing that. I totally agree with that. You need to be doing lives. You need to be doing showing your personality, showing the real you. But then he said, well, and I suggested, well, you know, do like level up your live show, which is what I'm all about. Film that stuff. It doesn't have to be at a gig. It could be in rehearsal. It could be busking on the street. Film yourself live, and then use that kind of content to promote yourself, or to promote the slightly stuff, and then rinse and repeat. And he like vehemently disagreed with that and said, he doesn't agree with that at all. You know, it has to be live. No one does live anymore and stuff like that. So that was his opinion, based on his worldview, and he's in rap and hip hop. So you know, they're two very different genres. So maybe there are different ways of doing it. But I thought, well, surely if it's all about authenticity and you know, being authentic and showing the real you, then what is better content than doing live? You know, even if it's not at a show, you know, doing live in the rehearsal, live on the street. That's much more authentic than just putting like together a montage clip of still pictures to a beat that you produced on Spotify. You know, anyway, I didn't understand his point of view there. I think he was contradicting himself. Um, but anyway, that's my stance on it. It's start with live, get good live, do lots of live stuff, film lots of live stuff, and use that to um, enhance your Spotify stuff. So don't do one or the other, do both. I think Spotify is just as valuable, but I think that one can feed the other. And obviously, the Spotify stuff can feed the live. People listen to Spotify, they go, okay, they have that feature where it says, oh, they're playing near you soon. So, yeah, you go and check them out live, ain't you? And if they're good, then you might buy some merch and stuff like that, which is, you know, if you're just doing Spotify, it's, you know, you kind of closing yourself off that side of things. And I think every act, whether they're, you know, like a live band or not, or you know, it's good to have a live show. It's good to be. It's not going to harm you to do live stuff. So that's my whole take. And but make sure that your live show is good enough to really highlight what you're doing. You know, to really supplement, to really sort of enhance your music. Because if it's not good, then you're really only detracting from it. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm bringing it all back home here. So click on the link down below. If you want to talk about this, if you're in a situation where you're like, I want to start live, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to put a live show together. I don't know how to incorporate live into my sort of marketing plan, into my Spotify plan. Talk about that. Let's talk about it. I'm going to be working with an artist today. We've been talking recently, and it's out of my wheelhouse in terms of style. It's in a different genre to that I'm used to. But the point is, we're going to work with this guy, and we're going to work on his live show, and hopefully we're going to take that out on the street, and we're going to test that theory of, you know, that people appreciate live stuff, you know, and a live show can help build your Spotify audience. And of course, all this only is going to work if you've got good music as well. I mean, don't think that you can be a great live act if you can't sing, or if your songs aren't strong enough. You know, having a good live act isn't really going to make any difference there, because, you know, you've got to have the songs. You've got to have the songs. And I think for me, even before the live show, it starts with the song. It all starts with a great song. And if you've got a great song, you can do it in any kind of style, any kind of genre, and it's going to, you know, that's your asset. That's the thing that's going to drive the rest of it. So it starts there, having a great song, then perform that song in the best way possible, whatever genre it is. And a lot of good songs will work in all kinds of genres. You know, a good, well-written song, you can produce it in pop, country, reggae, R&B style, and it's going to sound great. And I think that's a good that is definitely a good sort of yardstick to measure it by. Anyway, so Glastonbury, it was great. Loved watching it, and I'll probably be watching some more of the acts which I've missed and taking notes. Oh, wow, they did that, they did this, he did this, they did that, he said that, and they did that. That's what I love that stuff. It might not mean much to you, but that's what I eat, sleep, and breathe. Like watching people's live performance and these little kind of things that they do, how it engages people and how it creates moments in a set. And now, when I'm talking about moments and stuff, Tom Jackson, he's the OG, he's the original live music producer. Check his stuff out. He's got some great stuff, and a lot of things that I do are based on that. But I'm kind of elaborating on it as well. But just to give props to people, because I think there's nothing worse than stealing people's, taking people's ideas and not giving anyone any credit. Of course, ideas are in the ether. I think they're in the kind of the universal in a way. But I have to say, I did learn a lot from Tom Jackson. And the big thing I learned about from him was about creating moments in, not just in the set, like having a moment of where everyone goes, wow. Like, a big example of that would be Michael Jackson doing his moonwalk live on stage. That was a moment. It wasn't anything to do with the song, really. It was just a moment. It was a movement. It was a dance. No one had ever seen it before, and people went nuts over it. That's a moment. Now, you can create lots of these moments in a set, in a performance, but you can also create them in the micro version in each song. So you can create a moment or 2 moments or 3 moments within a song, and then more moments within the set. So you see how it goes. And if you're sort of doing auditions, is a good example. So if you're watching Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, the X Factor, whatever these talent shows are, they have like a minute, maybe 2 minutes, not even that. Was it 90 seconds to do an audition? So that's even like half a song. But in that half a song, you've got to create moments. And sometimes, and oftentimes, it's the bit where they go into the chorus, isn't it? So you start down here and people know what's coming, and then they're anticipating the big lift, and can they hit the note? Can they do it? And when they do, then that's that satisfaction of like, yes, they've done it. And that's the moment they of triumph. And that's the moment everyone wants them to press the button and to turn around, and it's the voice, or it's Britain's Got Talent, press the buzzer. If it's the voice, we want them to turn around, and that's the moment. Or it can also be the intro, when they first walk out on stage and they hit a big note straight off. That's a moment. So all these things are moments that you can create within your song, in the set. So think about that when you're putting your sets together. Not so much like, well, of course, think about tempo, think about style when you're placing songs next to each other, but also think about the moments, the emotional impact you want to create on the listener, because that's what ultimately the audience are wanting. When you go to a performance, you want to be emotionally impacted, don't you? You want to be taken out of yourself and transported somewhere emotionally and mentally. And a good performance can do that. So you've got to be thinking along the terms of, what do I want my audience to feel? Where do I want to take them? And that's often moments, can be surprises. It can be like in dance music, it's the drop, isn't it? So the beat drops out and it builds up, and then you're waiting for the beat to drop back in again. Bam! Then it comes back in, and that's a moment, So just think about all these little things, how you can create these little moments, scatter them throughout the song, throughout the set. And so the emotional impact on the audience is that they're going from one moment to the next, one emotion to the next. So you want them to be, maybe you want them to dance, you want them to be elated, you want to build up tension, you want to relieve the tension, you want them to be reflective, maybe sort of sad or kind of mournful, or like Adele's songs. She sings a lot about heartbreak and reflecting and feeling that kind of yearning, and obviously country music can be a bit like that as well. EDM and pop music is more about sort of maybe up energy, maybe kind of like a lust energy, sort of a physical energy. So there's all these kind of different things. Metal and stuff could be more about aggression or releasing tension. So think about it. There's lots to think about, and it might be overwhelming to you. You might think, well, where do I start? How do I do all this? Especially if you're a solo artist. So this is why I want to speak to you. This is why I'm here for you to get in touch. Free call. Let's talk about where you're at with your live show, whether you're at with your live set, and let's see if I can help. And we'll take it from there. So I've been talking for about half an hour. My name's Spence. This is LinkedIn Live. We're talking about Glastonbury. What was all that about? What it was all about was live performances for me. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching on replay, hello, sign up, follow me, click the link on the bio, book a free call, and let's be prosperous. Have a great weekend. See you next week.